I think it's ultra cringe to see people today talk about like attacking like the alt-right, because I don't know where they are. Like, is the alt-right in the room with you right now? Like, this idea of like hiding your power level and dog whistling and all that and like stealth covert crypto, that shit is maybe you should define what alt-right is for your chatters. Okay, when I think of alt-right, I underlying point about everyone being accused of being a Nazi nowadays is correct. I just don't think trusting that Fuentes has any good intentions has to be part of the conversation. You argue it's important to undemonize Gerbers, but you often smell all lefties as rich, white, unprincipled dipshits. Why don't your arguments go both ways? Who is leading the left IRL if not these online lefties? Well, the issue is I might have to do it. Fuck, we are gonna lose subs. I might have to do another big fan base purge. I don't know how much I can deal with. Shadow members used to be moderate leftists, but then became useful idiots for the alt-right for absolutely no reason at all. Guys, I'm gonna be honest with you. Is the alt-right even a thing anymore? Who is the alt-right? Lauren Southern quit her shit. Richard Spencer is like a moderate liberal now. You have Fuentes and his Groyper people, but they don't really seem to harp on a lot of the traditional alt-right shit anymore. Like, they're barely fascist. I wouldn't say the modern day Republican Party is anything like the alt-right. I kind of feel like the Charlottesville shit kind of like fucked everything up. I think the Charlottesville shit really fucked everything up. The Ralph Report, those guys are like just crazy. Richard Spencer's a moderate liberal. Every time I hear Richard Spencer talk, he just sounds like a moderate. I don't know. And I heard him like in the Ukrainian-Russian debate thing. There was something else related to like domestic policy. I don't know if he leans as heavily into the immigration stuff anymore. He probably still has those views, but I don't think he's like super out there anymore, at least as much as he used to be. Like, Charlottesville was the Gettysburg of the alt-right. Yeah, maybe. His tweets for reference. What has he been tweeting about? Fuck. It's hard because I've heard him debate, because next to Haas, he sounds reasonable, but I don't know if that's really that hard. Something that I understand a lot of you guys are young, and I'm sure there's probably people making Reddit posts on this right now. Can I please get you away from this? I'm gonna take responsibility for this. I fed into this a lot, okay? And I super did. I admit that I fed into this a lot. This idea of like hiding your power level and dog whistling and all that and like stealth covert crypto, that shit is way less of a thing than you guys actually think it is. Than even I used to. The idea that there's like this whole like underworld of like alt-righters, like you go into like the bakery and you're like, oh hey, what's up? And they're like, oh, like back here, let's go, we're talking about the Jews right now. Like this like super ultra crypto world is not, it's not really a thing anywhere near as much as like people pretend it is. That like everybody around the world is like looking at each other, like signaling their, like, I don't know if you guys remember at the height of this shit, at the height of this fucking like, what is the word I'm looking for? Like delirium. There was some woman in like a congressional hearing or something, or it was something, and she like, I think she did this, and people were like, oh my god, like the fucking alt-right has gotten all the way to Congress. Hysteria, that's what I was looking for. Yeah, I do remember there was one really weird thing. I do remember one really weird thing though that I will always think about. The weirdest thing that I ever saw was that yeah, this was the weirdest thing. This is the only thing I ever saw that made me think. We must secure the border and build the wall to make America safe again. With the I think, didn't this have like the, am I crazy? I thought there was like a 1488 thing in here. There was like some really weird fucking, was it like on average out of 88 claims, fewer than 13? I don't know. This is like a really weird the 14 word shit. Yeah, that just oh, I'm sorry. I remember why I got onto this. The reason why I'm saying this is because like I think that one thing that's wrong, one thing that you guys have gotten really stuck on, and I notice this when I watch you guys try to associate with the Knicks movement. is you don't see like changing political movements. Like, I think that the Republicans that existed, even in my lifetime, like I can think of like huge schisms or fractures or divergent thought in the Republican Party, right? Like the neocons in the George Bush era, right? So if there are people older than me, maybe you can, because I don't know, maybe I don't follow politics as much. But when I think of like a neocon, a neoconservative in the Bush era, I'm thinking of somebody that's like small taxes, big on corporations, iffy on immigration, huge foreign policy nut, loves to invade other countries and do shit, right? This is like the classic like neoconservative, like very big, very hawkish, very big business, loves all that shit, right? Then you had this break off from them, like the Tea Party, this like constitutional whatever bullshit. Also small taxes and shit. A bit more populist and leaning though. A little bit less into foreign policy shit. A little bit more isolationist, like stuff like this. And then you've got the rising of like the Trumples, who are just their own whole fucking thing, right? Hyper populist, quasi fascist. I don't like to use fascist because everybody uses that word too much. But like we'll say like hyper populist, very isolationist, very much fuck big business. Like these types of people. Like, but I think that as you see all of these like political
keep
movements,
hating your life then, working class Andy,
like evolve and grow and die, I think you have to be aware of where the political movements are going, because I think that what happens is I think that you guys miss like why people say what they do and what people are actually feeling. Sure, but I assume you would say it's fair to call it dog whistling when Fuentes is always saying, just a joke, guys, after saying something maybe racist, sexist, edgy. So like, okay, so here's my understanding of things, and I don't spend enough time in these spaces to 100% know, but I'm pretty sure my interpretation is more true than you guys. When Nick makes a joke about how like something about Jewish people running everything, that's like a joke that's funny to him, and it's a joke that's funny to his audience, but it's funny for two reasons. One is because there might be a bit of truth to it, but two is because it triggers the fuck out of outside observers that don't know what's going on. And what'll happen is like people will spend all of their time attacking Groypers and attacking Fuentes, attacking this movie. It's like, oh, you guys are all anti-Semitic. You guys fucking want to kill everybody, blah, 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 blah. But the reality is that like that's not really what they talk about all the time. That's not really what their movement is about. It's not really what their that's not really what's going on. I'm guessing you got a long ass email about this. I've actually gotten a few emails from Nick Fuentes that have actually explained a lot of this on Link Stuff, which I thought was interesting. But it's more just like they'll laugh and they'll say it, and then when you attack them with it, they'll laugh about it. But you think that they're laughing because you've caught them, but they're just laughing because they think it's funny that you take it so seriously, if that makes sense. It's a kind of a complicated interaction. I think we've moved on to like so many layers of like hyper irony that it's hard to like pick out like what the fuck is actually happening. But you might be right about it being an in-joke to them, but they definitely think it's true on a lower level. I think that if you were to corner a Groyper, or maybe even Fuentes, and ask them, I think that they're going to say that this is what my guess would be, that their admittance is that Jewish people are more wealthy than most people. They're overrepresented at like the higher echelons in government, but they're probably not trying to like breed out the white race and cause like the great replacement. They're probably just part of like the higher controlling elite for all of society that represents elite interest, that is juxtaposed to the interest of like the ordinary citizen. Is my guess is going to be that's their more fundamental underlying views, rather than just like Jewish people are trying to kill all white people. Yeah, I know that's a hard one to buy. You can clip me and quote me in 3 years if you want. I'm 99% sure that I'm right about this. The sad thing is that without like doing a ton of watching of his content, I can't convince you of that otherwise. But the only thing that's like really cringy to me is I think it's ultra cringe to see people today talk about like attacking like the alt-right, because I don't know where they are. Like, is the alt-right in the room with you right now? Like, I don't know where they are. I think the alt-right died with Charlottesville. I truly do. Looking back now, retrospectively, I think the alt-right kind of died in Charlottesville. I think that it looked really crazy. It looked really bad. They were already a minority. Even the people on 4chan and shit knew that it looked fucking horrible. What about QAnon? QAnon is not the alt-right. I think QAnon is distinctly, separately different. QAnon is fundamentally different from the alt-right. Because QAnon was built on like weird deep state conspiracies that I don't think fundamentally relied on anything having to do with Jewish people. Because QAnon was able to draft in a ton of boomers and stuff too, and a ton of the older traditional Republican types or the Trumples that aren't like Jew haters. They don't hate Jewish people, you know. Maybe you should define what alt-right is for your chatters. Okay, when I think of alt-right, I thought of like, there's like 2 or 3 huge pillars of like alt-right. One is you need some form of like anti-Semitism. It's a really big part, I think, of the alt-right. It was built on like the Jewish conspiracy theory stuff, the Great Replacement ideas, Jews controlling everything to destroy white people. So that's a really big one. One is that. 2 is usually there's like a very heavy racial component as a part of it. And then 3 is usually they were like pretty fascist. The idea that like there was a deep state, everything was fucked. We need like one party, one leader to take us out of this, to fight against everything, blah, blah, blah. These are kind of like the 2 to 3 big things that I think you kind of need to be a part of the alt-right. But nowadays, yes, Lavendress. Nowadays when people say alt-right, it kind of sounds like people just mean like you're like far right or whatever. Like people will say alt-right, but like, oh, that just means like you're like far right. Like people will say like, yeah, they'll just describe anybody as far right as like alt-right. And I don't think that's using violence to achieve means. That's kind of like a fascist idea, I think, right? Nick said alt-right died at Charlottesville, and America First rose from that, centered on Christ rather than larby Nazi stuff. He calls this movement a reactionary religious movement. Yeah, this actually makes way more sense. I think there's a really big focus on religiosity. I think that's a real word, right? On religion for like some of the far right types, especially Nick's group. I think that religion plays a pretty big role in what they do now. QAnon definitely has elements of anti-Semitism. Bro, it's not anywhere near like what the alt-right was. I'm sorry, but it's just not. Like, my parents are fucking QAnoners, okay? You will find a lot of boomer old fucks that are QAnoners. It's basically just like, somebody in chat, was it Ophelia? Yeah. QAnon is kind of like a build your own conspiracy. This is true. Like QAnon was like, it was like a very modular conspiracy theory where you could just plug in basically anything that you wanted to make it work. And that's how you got like boomers involved, because like them or not, most people like Jewish people in the United States. People love Israel, Democrats and Republicans, especially older people. Even the Trumples, I think, are still, oh yeah, no, of course, Trumples are still big fans of Jews. Trump fucking loved Israel, right? I think it was like the United States and Kosovo, I think, were like the only 2 countries in the world to recognize the moving east from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem of the American embassy in Israel. So yeah, I mean, like even Trump is a huge fan of Israel and shit. So didn't the alt-right have people unironically arguing to kick out all the minorities and make the U.S. an ethno-state? Yes, the alt-right was insane. But like if you go to like an American First conference or whatever, or if you are hanging out in these communities, like they're not going to mind if like Hispanic or black people or whatever are there. I don't think they're going to care as much, right? Like I know that there are people hearing this and they're thinking like, no, Destiny, you're wrong, blah, blah, blah. But like, I'm just telling you that's important just to understand, right? Because there is a fundamental difference between an alt-righter in 2018. If you were to talk to them, they would say some shit like, well, I don't want the culture to change, blah, blah, blah. What they really mean is, I don't want any brown people here. We need to limit immigration because too many brown people makes me uncomfortable. In like 2018, 2016, 2017, like this is genuinely what alt-right people thought, like 100%, sorry. But in nowadays, in like 2022, I think if you were to talk to an American First person, you would talk about immigration, they would like genuinely say like, they would say like, oh yeah, like I don't want like a lot of immigration because I think it's going to like change the culture too much or whatever. They probably are closer to meaning that now, I think. They're worried about the demographic change changing the voting turnouts, although that might change with Hispanics leaning conservative. But it's not as much like a racial purity thing. If they could push a button and reset the race composition of the U.S., I think they might. But it's not as much a fixation anymore. The race and Jewish shit. It's not as much a fixation anymore. You saying groups like America First are bad? To write off a whole group as good or bad, I mean, like, they're certainly contrary to my political ideology. I mean, I don't like it. But I mean, I think it's important to understand what they think, why they think it, so that you understand how to have conversations with people that fall into it. I'm only saying this. Some guy emailed me a long time ago. It's why I've stopped making certain jokes about Nick. There's like a whole bunch of, like, obviously, you guys even know this from my community, right? Like, there's a whole bunch of jokes that people external to these communities use, and they don't realize that, like, they're not really landing as they think they do. So for instance, like, if I'm arguing with somebody and somebody's like, aren't you Destiny, the guy that loves incest? Now they might think that they've got a big own on me, but like all of us are like laughing because we know that they're dumb as fuck. And there's a lot of jokes like that related to Groypers or America First as well, right? Like if you call like Nick like a cat boy or gay or whatever, like, or an incel or whatever, like they all joke about that shit all the time. So like you say that and you think you're getting a big own, but not really. They're all just laughing at you. You know, they don't really care. Why are you so charitable to these people? I'm not being charitable to anybody. I'm just explaining how it works. Hold on. What was my... How big do you think the overlap was with what Lauren believed at the time when she was doing like right replacement video and shit? I think she was, I would, if I had to guess, I would say she was probably firmly like in the alt-right camp. That would be my guess. I don't know how much she ever bought into the anti-Semitism stuff, but I know that for like the immigration and the racial difference stuff, I'm pretty sure she was pretty bought into that. You absolutely would not say this about any left movement. What do you, for what? What do you mean? I don't even know if there are any left movements in the United States. The left sucks at organizing, my dude. What do you mean? But like, I've held water for progressive movements my entire fucking life. What do you, I've explained like the perspectives of BLM. I've explained the perspectives of even people that fucking riot. Like, what are you talking about? How have I not, how would you say that? I wouldn't make these same arguments or distinctions for people on the left. Are you saying all these people simmered down or they changed their ideas? I think that their ideas have just slowly evolved over time. What would you categorize Antifa as? I wouldn't categorize Antifa. Antifa doesn't exist in the United States. It's just not really a thing here, like it is in Europe. Or at least based on everything I've seen. It is a thing in Europe. My understanding is that in Europe, Antifa represents like a way more like organized thing that goes out and does stuff. Like they have like their like chapters with meetings and like big organized protests that can get violent. Like Antifa is a big thing across places like Central and Western Europe. Whereas in like in the United States, like kids just go with a black mask, like, oh, we're Antifa or whatever. I don't think it's or at least a few years ago, that was my understanding. Isn't the point of a dog whistle that it draws people in who don't believe the more explicitly bigoted thing? I don't know. I think that people spend too much time focusing on crypto weird shit. I think it's not healthy. I don't think it's productive to do that anymore. I think it's time to move on from that. Because it's gotten to the point now where like everybody in society is so fucking afraid of a dog whistle that we have to be like ultra PC and ultra crazy on every single thing we say. Otherwise we're like covertly like a Nazi. Like that shit is crazy to me. I mean, like we just saw a picture with like 100 likes, right? Where people are like, oh, Destiny's a fascist now, right? Like what? Apparently Vosh had experience organized with Antifa back in college. I wouldn't trust anything. I don't know. That doesn't mean anything to me. You think Nick himself changed or his beliefs changed? I think they probably moderate a bit over time because you draw like more people in. He talks about like a big tent, right? Like that's the goal, is to draw more and more people into your movement. And I just think that like a hyperfixation on race and a hyperfixation on like anti-Semitic shit, like powering your movement by hate just leads to a whole bunch of like really negative things that just kind of fuck you. Like it makes you look really bad. It's harder to draw new people in. I just think it's not a good look. I think they know it's not a good look. So I think it's better to focus on positive things that more people can relate to, I think. Maybe my guess. You think it's more relatable, but if they gain any significant power, the Jews would be the ones to go first? No, I think it would be like the hyper-capitalists, like the big fucking business owners and shit. I think that they are a little bit more aligned with the Trumples there.
Didn't say Simon Says.
So current strategy with content production. I assume you keep streaming, but you're looking to focus more on YouTube. We move. I don't know. We'll talk about it when I finish this. If I be this, I have to be this boss today. I agree with you, but I still think internally he's still probably a Nazi. Who cares? Why fixate on like that type of shit? Work with what you can see. Oh yeah, I remember that. When Hassan thought that Emiya was a Nazi because she just liked some of the drawings on Friend World or whatever. Yeah. I don't know, Dusty. It feels really weird. Kind of gives me similar vibes to how low-key tankies like Mike and Stein were using while wearing a liberal or a normal socialist mask to progress. Okay, never mind. Everybody is a Nazi. Never mind. Let's just go back to that. My bad. I just want to play Elden Ring today. You're right. If Nick's political side gained power, he would put people like you in camps. That's awesome, dude. And if Hassan's side gained power, they put people like me in camps too. So, I mean, what is that supposed to make me? Are you trying to evoke something in me? Like,
Keep hating your life then, working class Andy.
at the end of the day, neoliberalism is based, and hopefully that sticks around. Yeah, it just needs better mascots, I think, or something. Or the extreme shit just seems so much more appealing online. I don't know how to. I don't think a person like me can fundamentally communicate with somebody like you. I think that your mind is too far gone. I don't know what to say to you. How I can catch you up to where I exist at. Okay, your underlying point about everyone being accused of being a Nazi nowadays is correct. I just don't think trusting that Fuentes has any good intentions has to be part of the conversation. At no point in any of this conversation have I ever said that I think they have good intentions, that I support the movement, or anything like that. For some reason, people like you are incapable of understanding somebody without approving of everything they do. I don't know how to change you. If I did, I would sell a self-help program for like $20 trillion, but I don't know what to say to you. I'm sorry. You argue that it's important to How do you keep getting unbanned from everything? I don't understand how you're ever here. I told Nina to stop unbanning you from anything. I don't know how you're here ever. You're one of the dumbest. You frequently put some of the dumbest shit I've ever seen. You argue it's important to undemonize gripers. I never said you had to undemonize anybody. That's you. You are seeing it that way. You can demonize them if you want. Just make sure you're demonizing them for the right reasons. Demonize them because they're hyper-populist, because they've got a weird Christian fixation, because they're probably a little bit racist, probably like really nationalistic. Demonize them for those reasons, but not because they're fucking Nazis. I will open a new moderator position if Forethought ends up unbanning this guy from the subreddit. He was using Ninu for a while, but I told her to stop unbanning him. I think I have a note now on his account. Because he gets unbanned on my subreddit a lot too. You argue it's important to undemonize gripers, but you often smart all lefties as rich, white, unprincipled dipshits. Why don't your arguments go both ways? Because they're two different groups of people, and because I think it's different. I don't think you can compare somebody like Nick Fuentes, who is banned on every single platform, who has like is fucking no-fly listed, but still manages to hold conferences in was it in DC with how many thousands of people showed up, plus people from Congress, right? With fucking Hassan, whose chief political accomplishment is getting AOC to play Among Us with him. Right? Like, yeah. I'm sorry that the way that I talk about these two groups of people is going to be a little bit different. Why compared to Asani, compared to Kalinsky and Chank, who arguably made AOC and the Justice Dems? Kalinsky does nothing these days of value anymore. He has his like YouTube channel that does nothing. I guess. Chank tried to run in Florida, and he tried to run in a district in California. He got crushed. What did he get? Like, was it like 1.5% of the vote? What was it? It was not to shit on anybody for trying to run, but like it seems like these are definitely figures that are kind of like on the way out. The Young Turks, I think, still does like 20 million views.
Keep hating your life then, working class Andy.
I still do 20 million views a month, which is impressive. That's good, but I feel like in terms of politically relevant, I feel like Groypers probably have more Destiny's spiteful. I might have to do. Fuck. We are gonna lose subs. I might have to do another big fan base purge. I don't know how much I can deal with. I don't know how much I can deal with people like this. If I were to draw an Overton window of where like all of the American public was at in terms of like positions, I think that there would be a pretty big overlap with Groypers, and progressives are hardcore dwindling. Like even the mainstream progressive movement is like dwindling hard. But I think that the grippers are overlapping more or mapping onto more American opinions on the right and even towards the center than the progressive movement is. So like given like a set of independent minds, I almost feel like grippers could win over like independents versus like farther left people like Hassan or Cenk or the Majority Report or whatever. What do you think progressives are shifting then? I think the problem is, as much as it'll piss off the latcher dipshit here, I think the problem is that the progressive movement is way overrepresented by wealthy white kids. I think it hurt the movement a ton. Mitt Romney has a brighter political future than isn't Mitt Romney literally like a billionaire or whatever? Like, yeah, I mean, the guy's well entrenched in politics or whatever, but I don't know if I'd say he's a brighter future than any gripper. Like, 50 years is a long time, right? Why do you think being progressive is worth so much social capital these days? Because social capital comes from other white, wealthy college kids. Who is leading the left IRL if not these online lefties? Well, the issue is that when the left-leaning people in real life tried to become more effective, it feels like everybody's turned on them. I could be wrong. Maybe it's just what I see from like Brianna. I don't know if I've seen the Majority Report do it as much, but definitely like at least a lot of the soy college kids on Twitter. It seems like a lot of people shit on AOC now for trying to be more pragmatic. You saw Crystal Bell, is that her name? Shitting on AOC because of the meeting that she supposedly missed for like some union people that I don't even know if she did. Oh, Crystal Ball? I don't know what the fuck her name is. What are you basing your opinions on? Overton window polls or your own experience? I mean, like polling data and stuff. Like, it's happened time and time again. Like, progressive ideas are just not as popular as progressives seem to think they are, but they're uncompromising. They don't, like, the problem with progressives is that progressives act like they don't have to make an argument to anybody. They just, like, you either know that they're right or you're like a Nazi. You're like a worthless fuck that hates poor people. It feels like when I listen to... I'd have to think about this more. But it feels like when I listen to, like, if I were to listen to, like, Nick or, like, right-leaning people speak... Not mainstream right-leaning people. No, even like Tucker Carlson. It feels like they're making the argument more for why you should join them. That's what it feels like. Like, I think if I were to listen to, I think Tucker Carlson. I think if I were to listen to Tucker Carlson, he's gonna like try to convince me why. What the fuck? Like why I should believe what he's saying is true. But if I listen to like these like really far left people, they're just gonna tell me that, like, if I don't already agree with them, I'm basically a shitty person. Conservatives have a problem in calling everyone who opposes them groomers, no? Not everybody, but for LGBT people, yeah, it's been an attack for a long time. They just call all gay people groomers or whatever. I don't think anybody even knows what a groomer means anymore. Groomer and pedophile are the two most, like, stretched and abused words where nobody has any idea what those words mean anymore. It's just easier to buy conservative ideas, lol. They're just as vindictive. I don't know. I mean, left-leaning ideas are pretty vindictive too. Like, if I could incept your mind and give you two ideas, if I could give you like billionaires bad and America bad, you've got like 95% of what most progressives talk about. So I mean, like, I think a lot of people think it's a double standard that you'll say things like socialists are the same as Nazis, but then give Nick Fuentes so much good faith interpretation. I've never said socialists are the same as Nazis. I might have said that in some areas, like, the threat of, like, misinformation is just as bad on the left and right. I've said this, but I've never said socialists are not the same as Nazis. By definition, they're different. Also, who do you think I don't give a good faith interpretation to? Why do you keep using the left and progressives interchangeably? Well, in online discourse, people say like lefties and the left are like progressives. They don't consider like Democrats left anymore. In mainstream America, I should qualify that, because in mainstream American political discourse, we still consider Democrats like on the left. But online, you've heard this pop up in panels where people are arguing about me. Online, they don't consider Democrats the left. It's weird online shit. It's getting more and more divorced. Wait, hold on.
Obama.
Saying that you treat people the same way because they both have a propensity to lie is not the same thing as saying that they are the same. I'm so unbelievably disappointed that you would think that. I'm sorry. Like, you're like, I don't know what to say to you. I don't even want to talk to you. Like, do you bring your own weights to the gym? Yeah. Why would you ever... Yeah, you always bring your own weights to the gym. What do you mean? If you plan out the massive drama, you're going to start when you go on vacation. I feel like it's going to be something related with Vosh. He's on a mini break now, recovering from like a surgery. He's had drama going on with the Cat Black thing. I feel like another content creator is going to come out and say something about him, if I had to guess. I wonder if Hassan would defend Vosh from Dusty's manifesto? Hassan won't even mention it. He has no reason. It's still barely involved in it. We're back in circle.